Hello, everyone. Welcome to lesson 2 of module 2 of our Quiz Mastery Foundation certification course. Now, in this lesson, we're going to be looking at how you can A/B split test your quiz in LeadQuizzes. All right. Now, before starting on A/B split test, make sure that you've created and published your quiz, the original, and also the variation that you want to test. In LeadQuizzes, you have the option to test against existing quiz, a customizable template or a current quiz variation. All right, so you have those three options in LeadQuizzes. Okay, now I'm just going to show you via a couple of screenshots the variations that you can test in your quiz. All right, now first of all, you can test the start page options. All right, you can also test the question length. You can test the quiz copy contents, you can test the quiz color schemes, you can test the form field configuration, you can also test the offer options. And we're going to go through this one by one. All right. Now, starting with the start page option, okay, you can test, you can compare the impact of including the start page versus omitting the start page from your quiz. All right. So, for example, let's say you're going to have your quiz as a website pop-up or embedded on your website. If you're trying to improve the click-throughs, you may decide to remove the start page, test this out versus having a start page to see if you have more click-throughs. All right. Now, the next variation that you can test is, like we said before, the number of questions in your quiz. All right. So you can, test having between 8 to 10 questions, like we advise, for standard. And also you can test having less questions, having more questions, if, for example, you notice that from your reporting, there's a particular question that is kind of confusing and you have a lot of drop-offs at that point in your quiz, you can decide to delete that question and have less questions in your quiz. All right. You can also decide to test the type of question, the question content. Maybe it's confusing, maybe your audience don't understand it. All right, but for this particular slide, you try to test the question length. All right, ideally we advise 8 to 10, but you can try having a couple less, a couple more to see if this improves conversions. All right, now the next test that you can perform on your quiz is the start page copy. All right, so you can test different button labels. So you can have start quiz, you can just have start. If it's an assessment, you can have start assessment, you can have begin. You can test the button labels. You can also test adjusting the quiz description. All right. So maybe you have a description that says, take this 1 minute quiz to find out. You can try adjusting that to be more coherent with the quiz title. And maybe that way that gives your audience more clarity as to, what the quiz is about. You can test different descriptions and see if it leads to click-throughs into your quiz. You can also refine the quiz hook. All right. So if you notice you're not getting a lot of click-throughs to your quiz, you can decide to change the quiz hook or the title. Okay. Now, the next variation that you can test on your quiz is you can experiment with different cover image or background designs. All right, so you can use your own standard cover image. You can download that from one of the image sites, upload it onto your platform, or you can test against our own themes that we have pre-designed on LeadQuizzes. All right, you can also test this against your own website branding. All right, so you can brand your quiz to look like your website and test that as well. Okay. Now, the next variation that you can test is the result description. All right. Now, for the result description, you can test having, let's say, an image versus not having an image. You can test having a video. If you have videos that relate to what you're trying to convey, you can test having a video versus not having a video. You can test having a shorter description versus having a longer description. You can also test the call to actions in there. All right. Now, next, you can test like I said, branded colors versus the LeadQuizzes theme colors. All right. Also, you can test the form field. All right. So you can test having the form field description as well as the form field label. You can test, for example, filling the form below to get your results versus filling your information to get your results. Versus filling your information and claim your free, for example, PDF or free ebook or schedule a free consultation. You can test the different kinds of form description and title. Advisably, if you have a form of offer or a form of promotion, or something free that you offer to your audience upon completion, you can add this to the form description. And that way your audience know that there's something good waiting for them in the results page aside from the results. All right. Now, also you can test the fields in your form. All right. So bear in mind, the more fields you have, the less your conversions. All right. So if you just need the first name, the email address to reach out to them via email, you can test having that versus having a phone number. If you have, let's say, a sales team that's going to call your leads. All right, you can just test versus having just the email address rather than having a first name. All right. Next, you can test the offer. All right. So like I said, if you have different offers, for example, let's say you have an ebook, you have a coupon code, you have free consultation, you can test all those offers on your result page. All right. And yeah, that is the end of this presentation. So the key thing to take from this is that, when you create your quiz, you can test out different variations. However, try to make little changes at a time, so that way you can test the impact of the variation on the original contents that you made. All right. So if you're going to test, for example, the cover page image, you can test just the image. Don't make so many variations at the same time. That way you won't be able to identify which of them resulted in either an increase or a reduction in your conversions. Right. Now, in the next lesson, I'm going to be showing you how you can set up an autoresponder email sequence for your leads.